And this is the other day. I talked about this. I'm going to read it again. The presidential candidate, R.F. Kennedy, Robert F. Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., declaration that he may be open to running as a third-party candidate has the potential to completely shift the political landscape ahead of the 2024 election, according to a party official. If he made the decision and did what the work that needs to be done within that party, I could see him having a massive impact, said Angela McArdle, the chair of the Libertarian Party. She told the Epoch News. Now, I played this video the other day, go jump in the lake. I'm not going to play it again because it's not as important, but this is breaking news. Exclusive RFK Jr. planning to announce independent run. And he has a video over here. I'm going to play it really quick, and then me and Don will get into this situation because this is something that we have to talk about. There's a difference between a third-party run and an independent run. And we'll talk about that. But let's take a look at the video. Here's RFK with his latest video.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be in Philadelphia on October 9th to make a major announcement at the very birthplace of our nation. I'm not going to tell you right now exactly what that announcement will be. I can say, though, that if you've been waiting to come to one of my public events, this will be the one to come to. I'll be speaking about a sea change in American politics and what your part and my part is in that change. A lot of Americans who had previously given up any hope that real change would ever come through the American electoral process have begun to find new hope in my candidacy. And I understand the deeply felt concern that people have about the way corruption has overtaken our government. It's in the executive branch, it's in Congress, it's in the leadership of both political parties. And so some people feel a kind of cynicism alongside the hope, or they lose hope entirely because they've been disappointed so many times. I want to tell you now what I've come to understand after 6 months of campaigning. There is a path to victory. The hope we are feeling isn't some kind of trick of the mind. We all recognize that there's a genuine possibility of national transformation, and its source is the goodness of the American people. Our government may be crooked, but our people are kind, brave, and caring. That goodness is stronger than the divisions that are keeping us all apart. I see it every day on the campaign trail, and the more I see it, the more I trust it. And the more I trust it, the more the path to victory becomes visible. So how are we going to win against the established Washington interests? It's not through playing the game by the corrupt rules that the corrupt powers and the vested interests have rigged to keep us all in their thrall. Instead, we're going to have to rewrite the assumptions and change the habits of American politics. We're going to tap into a mighty surge of people power to reclaim an honest, peaceful, just, and prosperous America. So I am inviting you to join me in Philadelphia on October 9th. There I'll share with you our path to the White House and how we can all participate in healing our nation.
October 9th, Philadelphia, PA. What day is that? Is that a Friday, Saturday? Let's figure out the day there, Don. We have to make
it's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring Don's back in here. Don, there's something that caught my interest there. Now, if you don't know, ladies and gentlemen, Don DeBar and I went up together to New Hampshire when I asked RFK that pressing question about his stance on Israel and why he took down the tweets from Roger Waters, which, started this you-know-what storm, and then every single journalist or podcaster or any independent media personality started asking him and hitting him on his point about Israel. And a lot of the left, you just were in China with Cynthia McKinney. If there's anybody who's been considered an anti-AIPAC, anti-Zionist congresswoman at one point, that would be Cynthia McKinney. In fact, I think she spent a couple days in an Israeli prison. But
Ramallah.
And yeah, twice. Okay, so I mean, seriously, you have deep roots to this whole situation. You're very connected. You understand this. And there was a lot of people who were saying, well, how come people like Don and people like Pasta are still going to think that RFK is a viable choice despite his position on Israel, right? We went up together. We did that together. And we said we still think there's a strategic reason on why, people should support RFK. You know what I'm saying? And like I've said this before, one of the big reasons why I don't know if I will ever vote for him is because he is running in that Democratic Party. And how can we take him serious if he's running in a rigged election? This move seems interesting. And the thing that I want to point out right now is that he talked about the executive branch and the left. He showed a picture of Joe Biden, right? But then he showed a picture of Donald Trump. And he's even kind of stating with that message that he's more of an outsider than the big outsider in Donald Trump, and he's going to run either independently or third party. So what are your thoughts on this initial video right away? And then I want you to also answer me, what will he have a chance running as an independent, or does he have to run as a libertarian? I mean, obviously, I think the Green situation, I don't think he's going to run as a Green. It looks like they're not recruiting him, and they're happy with Cornel West. I mean, there's a whole different side. There's a whole side of the Greens, people in the Green Party that would love for RFK to run as a Green, and maybe they can recruit RFK to run as a Green so we can get that RFK Cornel West debate. But who knows? Right now, he went to PorkFest. We understand this. He's in New Hampshire. There's a lot of libertarians who like him. Your thought on that video, and can he run as an independent, or does he have to run as a libertarian? Go ahead, Don.
I mean, it's a very complex nut that we're looking at here. First of all, you have to ask yourself this fundamental question. No matter what happens, whether he runs as an independent, if he becomes a Democratic nominee, doesn't run, somebody else runs, whatever, the first part you have to, you know this better than anybody because this is an area of your expertise. The first question is, no matter who's on the ballot and who goes in and how they vote, is the tally going to reflect any of that? In other words, is the outcome going to be decided by somebody that's going to say, send to printer with something that they put together a week before the election, instead of tallying the votes that have been cast by people for candidates? Mm-hmm. So I don't know the answer to that question. So everything that I'm going to say forward, I acknowledge you have this problem up front.
Yep.
The other one being, if you accidentally elect somebody that intends to do some of the things that they promise that you want, you have this institutional morass to get through. His Uncle Jack being one example of how they deal with it. Donald Trump being another example of how they deal with it, no matter what he is. So you got to look at that. Looking at the election with those two things, to me, the thing that's interesting about having him as a candidate in the Democratic Party for that side of it is that you would have a situation with a Democratic and a Republican nominee. Again, I'm not saying whether it's possible or even desirable, but this is an interesting thing where both of them are running as outsiders, but more importantly, articulating counter narratives that are close to the reality of the situation. The press is crooked. The political system is crooked. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party are crooked. The Congress is crooked. The CIA is crooked. The agencies have been captured by the people they're supposed to police. These things, to the majority of Americans, may be felt, and they know something's wrong, but they have no idea about the structures around them. And for a large section of the population, with the way that we've been indoctrinated, essentially, whether through religion, whether through culture, whether through media, whatever, or all of the above, we are what we do. So if we're successful in our life, it's because we worked hard and we kept our nose to the grindstone and such. Mm-hmm. And if we fail, it's our own fault. So, or some isolated or individualized injustice happened, but it's not systemic. The idea doesn't even occur to people that this system is what's oppressing you. And to hear the Democratic and Republican candidates saying that heresy out loud, I think would have a major impact on basically raising the political consciousness of the working class, of the people in the country generally, like 3, 4, 5 major steps towards, being able to do something about it. So I wanted to get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have
now let's tackle the big issue, right? Independent versus libertarian, because I know I'm going to get a call from my friend Dr. Laura as soon as this is done, because there's a lot of people convinced that you can run as an independent. But Don, I don't think a lot of people understand, to get on some of the ballots in some of the states, there's like 10 states as an independent. It's almost impossible.
Well, I mean, the calculus of the problem, first of all, is a Democrat or not Democrat. And then if it's not Democrat, Is it independent or libertarian? The Greens they're not even a serious party anymore. I learned that really following Cynthia McKinney around in 2008. She was a dead serious candidate in that party. There were some very good people, Hugh Esco, some others that I met, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but I'm sure I'm going to. But in general, the party itself there was no infrastructure whatsoever. None. And out of the activists who were able to scurry around and get ballot access to give the appearance of a party, there's so many contradictions in there, class contradictions, all kinds of cultural contradictions, and they've adopted the worldview of the woke part of the Democratic Party. In fact, they're like the ultra woke in a way, the people who have some control of that. So anyway, now you're looking at either independent or libertarian. And so now you're looking at a question, that's if you're going to decide not to do the Democratic Party, because what we're looking at right now, this article in Mediaite, is that how you pronounce that?
Yep.
Which I saw in The Guardian, and then I went back to the...
Sorry.
Yeah. I saw it in The Guardian, actually, and I went back to it. I hate to say Guardian, but... And my impression reading it is he may be leveraging the Democratic, the DNC, basically, saying, okay, look, I hear you about this. If I run, I'm going to be taking votes away from Biden. The primary process will end up electing Trump. Guess what? I don't give a fuck about that. If you're going to screw me, I'm going to screw you. In other words, he's playing he's playing actual hardball politics, like I wish Ralph Nader did in 2000, when they said to him, you elected George Bush. Instead of saying, no, I didn't, here's all this mathematics and other bullshit, I would have said, I did, and I'm going to keep doing it until you make this thing fair and do what I'm telling you. That's power politics. So he may be doing that. So this may be, more or less negotiating with the DNC for a fair primary process. No matter what that does, he doesn't really have to make this particular decision that he's going to announce in October. He can hold off. There's a couple states. Cindy Sheehan pointed out to me there's some things in the law in California. He may have to do some of it earlier. But anyway, if he's going to run outside the Democratic Party, then he has two choices, the Libertarian Party or to run as an independent. And he's got money. Okay, this is not like, trying to run Nader campaign on a shoestring or Cynthia's on a borrowed shoestring or whatever. He's got millions, and they're getting a lot of success fundraising, an incredible amount. And so they can actually conduct a real campaign, wasting their time as an independent, cobbling together infrastructure at the state, each in 50 states, plus in Puerto Rico and Guam and wherever the hell else you got to go. Instead of using the available actual infrastructure of the Libertarian Party to be on the ballot, to offer a choice to people. So when you say to them, okay, I can't be in the debates, I'm going to be on Tucker Carlson, and 10 times as many people are going to see me anyway. There are possibilities for a candidate that's on the ballot that doesn't have to squander the money they're raising on getting on the ballot. And so if he's really either thinking now of doing that run or leveraging the threat of it to try to get a fair game or something close to that in the Democratic process, and then going over later. The choice between those two things is clearly Libertarian Party.
Okay. So let's talk about this really quickly. So when RFK decided to run as in the Democratic Party, a lot of people are like, okay, this is not the old Democratic Party. You know what I'm saying? This is a new Democratic Party. It's completely bought off. It's a neocon party. They're pro-war. They're, pro-censorship. They are against civil liberties. We saw, Dianne Feinstein, who just, passed away, how she was cool with the NSA spying on all of us. She didn't care. That's how this party is. They push for more censorship across the board. The Democratic Party that I thought that I joined during the Iraq war time, when I was so upset with the Wolfowitz doctrine and these preemptive strikes, Kennedy has kind of embraced that, where a lot of people are like, well, this is the Democratic Party we wanted it to be at one point, right? When we thought we can go in there and take it over. It's a little bit different than the Libertarian Party itself, because the Libertarian Party as a bulk is a very anti-socialist, anti-communist party, even though libertarians really were spawned out of socialism, right? They forget that from the French back in the days. Do you think there's a place for people like myself and you and RFK who are that leftist libertarian? Because there are a lot of libertarian values that RFK has, and he's pro First Amendment, he's pro civil liberties. I only call myself a leftist libertarian. I've never been part of the Libertarian Party, but I embrace those values that are forgotten that the Libertarian Party loves so much. They are also, Don, anti-regime change. They are non-interventionist, right? So that's a big thing. Is there a place for us in that party? Because I know there will be a big part of that party, that will be just like, oh, hell no, this guy's closer to a social democrat than he is a libertarian, like a true social democrat, Do you think there's a place for him and a place for us inside that Libertarian Party that I've always pushed for so much?
The Libertarian Party as such right now is an infrastructure, and has that infrastructure rests on the back of activists that have various perspectives in terms of ideological perspective. Taking the term literally, a true libertarian would be pretty much akin to an anarchist, legally. And anarchists, by the way, aren't necessarily, and really the ideology doesn't mean running around with a Molotov cocktail and throwing it at the police or whatever. Yeah. Anarchist, in essence, there's not a state to impose restrictions on people, and there's not also down to the bottom corporate or any other structures that are imposing.
To provide a little context there, the anarchist inside the Libertarian Party, the anarchist mindset, they don't want anybody to have a monopoly on violence. You know what I'm saying? They're like, it's more of a peaceful anarchism, anarchy, and the people don't really grab that. Please continue.
I would say even a monopoly on power.
Yeah.
So, because that's so the ability to impose violence is an element of power. Yeah. You can't do it without power. Power is fundamental. So anyway, the people that support this ballot access machine and campaigning machine and getting the message out and organizing voters and support for the campaign machine have a variety of ideological perspectives. And he's been sort of pitching to them. That's what I went up after we went to New Hampshire a couple of days later. I went up to Pork Fest, which was this festival you're referring to. Yeah. And I saw how they assembled people for his presentation in this thing that was packed to the gills and a line as far as you could see. And he got a very positive response from those people. Now, I don't know how typical New Hampshire libertarians are. I know that some of the things that they say sound like they are on the libertarian section of libertarianism, some would say in the political context between Democrats and Republicans, extreme. I didn't really hear anything that upset me there. I have some disagreements ideologically, but I think he would be able to motivate a good number of the people that structure rests upon, so that he would not only be on the ballot, but he'd be able to campaign. And in addition to that, he has this money thing already. They're doing it. And I think if he was raising a viable alternative to either Biden or whatever the Democrats regurgitate after his body falls on stage once or too many times or whatever, or even Trump, but if they can imprison him or put him in Guantanamo, whatever they're going to try next, then he'll be very viable from point of view of raising more money, and also of having people, whether they join the Libertarian Party or not, joining the effort to get him elected president, which of course then turns the Libertarian Party into an actual political force in the United States. Yeah. Now, the question becomes then, who is who owns or manages the Libertarian Party at that point in time? And that's a question that's got to be addressed. And we'd like to hear something from it if that's what happens. There is, though, the possibility that some accommodation is made to prevent him from running an independent campaign that has him inside the Democratic primary, where he has a chance to do that. And again, even in the context of Democratic primaries, where he is covered, no matter how many times the morons on CNN or MSNBC or Fox try to color what he says as this is an anti-vaxxer, this is a, some kind of lunatic or another. What he says will resonate with people because he's saying things are fucked up. There are remedies to this. I'm going to, just being older than you, suggest in my opinion, the Democratic Party didn't change in 2004 or 2000 or 96 or 90. It changed a little in 92. But when his father ran for president, announced it March 17th, 1968, Lyndon Johnson was president, and you had a Congress and a president who were at war, basically destroying Vietnam, and all of the sins that you were describing were occurring at that time, and that was a direct product of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. After that happened, and essentially Bobby Kennedy enters the race to try to take the party back, because it was different before his assassination. I'm not saying it was better, because the southern part of the Democratic Party were the Dixiecrats.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you had the influence of people like Daley in Chicago and others, but there was a marked change in what happened at that point in time. He announces he's running for president, and we're going to reclaim the Democratic Party, quote unquote. That was essentially the campaign message. Within 2 weeks to the day of his announcement, the guy who was just elected by the largest landslide in the history of the United States resigns, not resigns, but says withdraws from the race. I'm not running for re-election. I will not serve if I'm elected, and I will not run if I'm nominated. And so I think he's like sort of pushing a few of these buttons with this announcement.
Yeah. His
announcement of, I'm in it, no matter, you're not going to screw me out of running, I'm running.
Yeah.
I think that he may be I'm speculating, but he may be hoping somebody somewhere that's got power over what's happening at the DNC is going to say, we've got to get Biden out of here because he doesn't have a chance. And if he goes under these circumstances, we might be out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's October 9th, and that's still like 13 days away, I believe. About 11 days away.
Well,
so it's 11 days away. So there's a lot of time to negotiate with the DNC if they come around. He's, I'm going to do this right now, and I'll run as a libertarian or I'll run as an independent, and that will really screw over Biden, which I think is going to happen anyways. Like that's his leverage right now. If he's running in the Democratic Party primary, they can get rid of him, and then the sore loser laws come into play, right, where he's got to either, push back against those as being unconstitutional. Because if people don't understand, a lot of people were hung up on, he's going to sign a promissory note that he's going to support who the Democratic nominee is. Yeah, but they never gave him a primary, so he doesn't have to sign that. Right. And if he signed that, he can just say, well, you reneged on your deal. We're going to go back. We're going to, we're going to go ahead and run anyways as an independent, right, after the primary. But it's the sore loser laws, which some people say are unconstitutional, which have to be, once again, contested.
You're dealing with that stuff, okay, Ralph Nader did some, impressive legal work. He's been a public interest lawyer forever also.
Ralph Nader, who's supporting the Democratic Party now.
No, separately that. But that's an interesting point in terms of looking inside his head, like, what are you really up to?
Yeah.
But he did some impressive election work because I went down to Texas in 2004 to help petition for him. We got enough signatures, and we got knocked off anyway. And he litigated that, a bunch of other states. But Bobby Kennedy's been litigating a lot of really successful cases against a lot bigger adversaries than just some board of elections in some state or other.
Yeah,
like the big stuff. And and he may be sitting again, when push comes to shove, on top of a shitload of cash to fund it. In other words, I can manage my own legal team to deal with these challenges. I understand the nature of this friggin' thing since I was standing next to my uncle's knee when I was 6 years old, and I got the money to hire all the lawyers I need, and I know who they are.
Yeah. So if he runs as an independent, it seems like he's on track to pick a Tulsi Gabbard as his vice president, right? Somebody.
You mean the Libertarian?
No, if he runs as an independent, I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that as a libertarian, libertarians love Tulsi Gabbard. That's how I met a lot of my libertarian friends in New Hampshire when we were at a Tulsi Gabbard, celebration party for her run. in New Hampshire, and that's where I saw a lot of the whole, wow, we have a lot in common over here.
Yeah, some of your friends too, I know.
But don't you think that the Libertarian Party themselves might say you have to make concessions of sorts, and if you want to run on our ticket, you have to pick somebody who's a little bit more of a conservative capitalist, like a Judge Napolitano, to run as the vice president? Do you think that there's some jockeying there going on? I mean, what would the Libertarian Party require of RFK? Since I'm going to call Angela again, hopefully she'll answer my calls. What do you think they'll require out of RFK if, in fact, they say, come on in, take a seat here at the head of the table at the Libertarian Party?
Look, you're talking about, someone has the keys to national ballot status for a presidential run, and you have the money to make it actually mean something. Whoever has those keys, of course, in politics, they negotiate. And we don't know who that is. I mean, I've heard Koch brothers, this, that, or whatever, but this thing rests on the activists. And Bobby Kennedy has credentials with the activists. So if you're going to have those negotiations, they're going to be two-way at least.
Yeah.
If I were the people who control the Libertarian Party, and I could be assured that I would have some measure of control in the Libertarian Party after this election, then I would defer entirely to Kennedy and support him entirely.
Yeah. Because
I know that the one step that will build this thing that I own or I have a share in or whatever, more than anything else, would be his presidential run in this particular presidential election.
Yeah.
There's a constellation of things that are sort of in place that make this possible. We saw what conditions in 2016 did to enable Sanders, no matter what his intent was. The people coalesced around him. They gave him money. They did all these things. He rose like this over the most established Democratic candidate, although to use Fee's term, I forgot what she said, that she sucks. Except for the fact that Hillary Clinton sucks, right? Sanders rose up in that condition. Trump rose up, the outsider, in that condition. This is 2016. And the people were in the street, Black Lives Matter and all of that. The condition of the people has only gotten worse.
Yeah.
And, the legitimacy that barely existed in 2016 was completely decimated, both with the election in 2020 that was stolen, obviously, to many people, and in the opinion of even more people. And then the response to even claims that something was wrong, as if this were some kind of sacrilege, to people who have seen the same people calling this a sacrilege challenge every election going back to 2000 or before. Yeah. So the conditions are ripe for sort of a popular uprising in place inside the electoral sphere. Now, how much of that is going to stay contained in it, and how much of that which is outside the electoral sphere that is also very solidly there, that's a question we're going to see as this goes on. Yeah. There's a lot of energy for a campaign like his, no matter whether it's in or out.
And that campaign is growing, and I don't care if he runs as Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent, Green, whatever, it's going to continue to grow. The last event I saw him at was in California last week. And throughout, he had a speech, and there was about 500 people in the room. It was packed to the gills. People were standing up. There were people up on top. And he said, and it was probably bigger than 500. I don't know the size of that theater, but it was completely full. Big. He said Bernie Sanders was a threat to the donor class. And if you think that he was a threat, I'm 10 times the threat. And the whole room exploded. There's going to be more to come. I'm going to figure out what's going on October 9th. I don't know if I'll be here in this seat or I'll be in Philadelphia, but we'll figure it out, Don. I'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much for coming on today. I don't know if you know this really quickly, because you talked about Daley, right? And you talked about Chicago, and we talked about that Democratic convention over there. Did you know in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, when Alan Arco was going, I come to work and I meet Gestapo tactics, he was repeating, is it McGovern? Or who was that at the Democratic convention that was telling Daley, you don't have to come to the streets of Chicago to get Gestapo tactics. And Daley, McCarthy, exactly. And Daley was yelling at him, screaming back at him. I don't know if you knew that, but I learned that later in life. The whole time
I never made the connection.
I didn't either. But when I got into politics and I watched that convention, I learned something. Alan Arkin did it well, but nobody does it as good as Don DeBar. Let everybody know where they can find you, and I'm sure I'll see you soon, Paisan.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, my blog is at dondebar.blogspot.com. It's pretty simple. Don DeBar is, you take my name on the tag there, make it one word. It doesn't matter, upper, lowercase, .blogspot.com. I'm on Facebook with the name exactly like this. I'm on Twitter with the name without a space between the two words, at Don DeBar. I'm also on vk.com under this name. And I'm also on truthsocial.com, which is the Trump Twitter. And I'm also on Blue Sky. I just got on that. I'm not that active yet.
Well, you're going to have to switch that blog spot over to a Substack sooner or later. So
yeah, I know, when I have the time. First, I got to get the rest of the water out of my basement from this damn rainstorm.
Well, it's great to see you. I hope you stay dry over there, and we'll see you soon, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Misha. Thank you, everybody there. Thank you, Jimmy, for letting me be here, too.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Tampa, Boca Raton, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Bloomington, Illinois, Indianapolis, and Levittown, New York. Wow, that's a lot of dates. See you there.